Salutations, Nyasha. How are you? It's mommy. So now we're gonna do. Well, I hope that all has been well. For the last few videos, I have been focusing on doing fractions. So this math video, we are actually going to be looking at arithmetic. Now, these are basic math facts. So I'm not adding these, I'm not showing you these to teach you how to add and subtract. What I'd like to teach you is the relationship between numbers and mathematical operations. What does that mean? I know that is a mouthful. There's this concept in math called inverse. Oh, I did it again. I didn't do roll call. Who's brilliant? Raise your hand if you're brilliant. Excellent. Raise your hand if you're intelligent. Raise your hand if you're amazing. Raise your hand if you're blessed from the crown of your head to the sole of your feet. Raise your hand if you can do anything that you put your mind to. Excellent. So, I think that you're brilliant. I think that you're intelligent. And I think that you are absolutely exquisite in all manners of the word. And I say that because I know you're made in the image of an awesome God. And there's nothing that God can't do. So I know that there's nothing that you can't do. So, back to the lesson at hand. All right. So what I wanted to focus on is how numbers relate to one another and how mathematical operations relate to one another. What does that mean? What it means is that there's a concept called inverse operations. Inverse operations means that when you do the opposite operation, you can figure out the numbers involved. So let's look here. We know that 2 plus 2 is 4. That's something that you know, right? 2 plus 2 is 4. So then because you know if you add 2 to 2, you'll get 4, you know that if you subtract 2 from 4, you get 2 because you need 2 2's in order to have 4, which is why 2 times 2 equals 4, right? Because if you have 2 2's and you add them together, you get 4. So this is 2, this is 2, 4, okay? 2 plus 2 equals 4, right? That's basic math. Now, there's another operation. So we talked about multiplying. So these are the four basic mathematical operations we're going to look at. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So when we were talking about fractions, we were really focusing on division. Okay, that means dividing numbers into smaller parts, dividing a whole number into smaller parts. Okay, multiplying is adding multiple sets simultaneously. Okay, subtraction is taking away. Adding is, of course, increasing. Okay, so we can increase by ones, we can decrease by ones, we can increase by multiples or in groups, or we can divide or make smaller by groups as well. Okay, so now let's look at that again. So we know that 2 plus 2 is 4. And because 2 plus 2 is 4, we can recognize that when I subtract one of the 2's, 4 minus 2 is equal to 2. Basic, easy peasy. So now, one of the things you've memorized also is that 2 times 2 is 4, because when you have two 2's, right? Two sets of 2, I have 2 fingers right here and I have 2 fingers right here. When I put them together, how many do I have? 4. So when I have two sets of 2, I'm going to automatically, my total sum, if I'm adding, is 4, or my product, if I just say 2 times 2, my product is going to be 4. Now, my divisor, I have a divisor, a dividend, and my answer, my quotient, let me get it right, it's the dividend and it's the quotient. Let me pause it just to make sure I get my key terms straight, okay? Hold on one second. All right, so I just wanted to be certain. So we have some big words. So when we're dividing, we have our dividend, which is the number that is going to be divided. We have our divisor, which is the number or the amount we're dividing by, and we have our quotient, okay? The quotient is the answer, all right? So we can say answer, we can just say answer, but when I say quotient, I know that the operation I was doing was that I was dividing. When I say product, I know that the operation I was doing was multiplication. When I say difference, I know that the operation I was doing was subtraction. When I say sum, I know that the operation I was doing was addition. So those are the four basic operations in addition. In arithmetic. There are four basic operations. These are the four basic operations of arithmetic. Okay? You have addition, you have subtraction, you have multiplication, and you have division. Okay? The language or the terms you use let you know which operation you're doing. That helps you with your word problems. So if you hear the word quotient, you know you're dividing. Again, if you hear the word product, you know you're multiplying. If you hear the word difference, you know you're subtracting. If you hear the word sum, you know that you are adding. Okay? The factors in an addition problem are called add-ins. Okay? Add-ins. All right? And these sums, it can be sum, subtract one sum for the other when you're doing subtraction. And these are called factors, okay? And multiplication, all right? And then dividing, that's the one. You got a dividend, a divisor, and you have the quotient. The quotient is the answer. So now, we looked at the twos, right? We looked at twos for that. Now let's look at three. Ooh, what can we do with three? All right, when we have 3 plus 3, we know it's 6. So if we have two groups of 3, right? So then if we have 3 plus 3, it's 6. But now what happens if I subtract 3? So then 6 minus 3 is 3. Okay, 6 minus 3 is 3. 3 times 2. So if I have two groups of 3, and we've practiced this, if I have two groups of 3, right, I'm going to get 6. So that means 3 times 2 is also 6. So even though it's different operations, the answer is the same because the sums that you are working with are the same. So whether I call them sums or whether I call them factors, the numbers are the same. And that's important because as you get to more advanced math, you're going to be able to recognize the relationship between these numbers and use your mental math to solve your problems. Okay? So this is a review. It's kind of like a review and an introduction all together. But let's keep working. So then 6 divided by 2 is equal to 3. So if I have a dividend of 6 and I use a divisor of 2, and I will get a quotient or an answer of 3. Okay? So now let's look at those facts again. 3 plus 3 equals 6. 6 minus 3 equals 3. 3 times 2 equals 6. And then 6 divided by 2 equals 3. So we're looking here. Okay? So let's look at that again. 3 plus 3 is 6. That means how many groups of 3 did I have? 2. Right? So now, 6 minus 3, I know I have to have two 3's. So 6 is made up of two 3's. If I get rid of one 3, I have one 3 left. So 6 minus 3 equals 3. So now, I know that it takes two 3's to make 6. So 3 times 2 equals 6. Now, if I know it takes two 3's to make 6, 6 divided by 2 must be 3. Because what number do I need 2 of to get 6? 3. Okay? So this is just the twos, and I know it may seem a little bit complicated, but again, this is what arithmetic is. 4 basic operations. We can add, subtract, multiply, or divide. Okay? Okay? Add, subtract, multiply, or divide. Okay? I know that looks really sloppy. I'm sorry. I'm always getting on you about write it neatly, and then I just kind of slopped it up here on the page. So add, subtract, multiply, divide. Okay? So what did we do? We can add, subtract, multiply, or divide. All right? When we do arithmetic, we can do any four of those operations. So now, the same basic concepts and the same basic principles apply. Okay? So if we did 4 plus 4, that equals 8. All right? So I know if I add 4 to 4, that's going to be 8. Easy peasy. We've been doing that for a while. You know that. But now, what if I subtract that same 4 from 8? Well, I know it took me 2 4s, so if I add it, so 8 minus 4 is going to give me 4, all right? Because I know 4 plus 4, so if I have 2 4s and I get 8, if I give away 1 4, I still have my same 4 left, right? I still have 4 left because 4 plus 4 is 8. Now, it's the same thing. 4 times 2. When I have 2 4s, if I have 2 groups of 4, I'm going to have a product of 8, okay? Now, that means if I have the number 8 and I divide it by 2, I get 4, okay? 8 divided by 2 equals 4, okay? 8 divided by 2 equals 4. 8 divided by 2 equals 4, okay? So now, let's look at the next problem. Same thing. 5 plus 5 equals what? 10. Very good. Now, what is 10 minus 5? 5. Because how many fingers do you have on each hand? 5. So if you have 2 sets of hands, how many fingers do you have? 10. Very good. So then that means 5 times 2 is also 10. Well, then that means that 10 divided by 2 is 5. So we're working with the same factors, with the same sums, with the same numbers. And you notice we haven't really gone out of these basic numbers. 5, 2, 10. Okay? So 2 5s will give you 10. You take away 1 5, you get 5. 5 times 2 equals 10. 10 divided by 2 equals 5. Okay? And so when we're looking at being able to reverse our operations, like basically work backwards to get our answer, because sometimes you may not have all the facts, sometimes you may not know, and so you use the opposite operation to figure out what's missing. Okay, and that's why it's important. And this is stuff that you can do in your head if you can't write it out, but we have to practice it a little bit more because sometimes you forget, just like mommy forgets, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I just need to see it written because I can't do that in my head. Okay, so now what about this one? 6 plus 6 equals 12. Okay? 6 plus 6 equals 12. That means that 12 minus 6 is what? 6. Very good. So that means that, if 6 plus 6 is 12, 6 times 2 is what? 12. Very good. And then what's 12 divided by 2? 6. Excellent. 12 divided by 2 is 6. Very, very good. So do you see how it works the same even though the numbers are different? All right, let's look at this one. 7 plus 7 is 14. Ooh, 7 plus 7 is 14. Now, what is 14 minus 7? 7. Very good. So then 7 times 2 is what? 14. Because what? I have 2 7s, and that gives me 14. So now, if I know that there are 2 7s and 14, if I divide 14 by 2, I'm going to get what? 7. Very, very good. Very, very good. Okay, so now, the same thing will work. If I divide 14 by 7, I'm going to get 2. because there are 2 7s and 14. So what I just want you to look at is base group numbers. So we're just looking at basic functions in arithmetic and numbers, okay? That's all it is. There are 4 basic functions of arithmetic. We have addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, okay? And regardless of the operation, we when we work within these common factors, we're gonna get the same answers. Okay? So it just depends on the operation and how we use them. All right. So I'm not certain if I really explained it as well as I would have liked to, but that's just important because we're going to start working with regrouping. We're going to start working with division, and I just wanted to have giving you this basic review to understand how it all works together, because I know it helped me quite a bit when I understood the relationship between the different functions and the different operations of arithmetic. So that's going to be the conclusion of this video. I have a couple other things that I wanted to kind of work through, but that'll be that for this particular video. I want to keep them shorter than they have been. But I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. And I hope to hear from you. I hope to hear from you soon. Definitely leave me a message or tell your dad to call me, and we'll talk about it. Okay? I love you. Have a great day.